In the year 2194, death is no longer the end. It is merely the beginning of another cycle. Mickey Barnes falls into an icy cave. His breath fades into the cold, and he waits for death. But Mickey is not an ordinary man. He is a disposable, printed from recycled waste, born to die again and again, sacrificed so others may live, used, erased, reprinted, until one day he wakes up and sees himself, another Mickey, still breathing, still alive. Two copies, one life, and suddenly the cycle breaks. Outside, an alien race called the Creepers demands justice. Their child was taken, tortured, killed. The mother demands a life in return. Mickey stands in the snow, face to face with extinction. His duplicate whispers, "Tell Nasha I finally did something right." Then he detonates the bomb on his chest. A flash of light. A tyrant falls. A war is stopped. On a frozen world where humans are printed like sheets of paper, one man chooses to be more than disposable. He chooses to exist. This is the story of Mickey 17. The air was thin and bitterly cold, like the frozen breath of some ancient, forgotten god. The planet Niflheim, a world where warmth was a mere myth, lay cloaked in layers of ice and snow. Mickey, version 17, found himself tumbling helplessly into the dark abyss of a deep cave, his body bruised from the relentless assault by the alien beast. The ground had cracked beneath him like brittle glass, sending him plummeting into the unknown. As his body hit the jagged rocks below, a sharp, searing pain coursed through him. His vision blurred, but the cold, deathly silence of the cave pressed down on him like a heavy weight. He struggled to his knees, eyes darting around the darkness, but it was no use. The sheer emptiness of the place swallowed him whole. Despair clung to him like the frost in the air. Mickey whispered to himself, his voice faint and cracked, as if even his breath feared to be heard in the vast nothingness. Mickey, whispering to himself, desperate, "I can't get out. This is where it ends." The walls around him were cold, unyielding, like the frozen heart of a world that had long forgotten warmth. He was utterly alone, trapped in a place that felt as though it had been waiting for him, waiting for his death. Then, as if summoned by the depths of his despair, a sound broke the stillness, a hum, low and mechanical, but powerful. A distant flicker of light cut through the darkness above, casting a long shadow over the cavern floor. The faint outline of a flying vehicle descended, its sleek form cutting through the heavy air. The faint, almost eerie glow from its thrusters illuminated the jagged walls of the cave, creating an unsettling contrast with the cold, lifeless surroundings. The vehicle hovered silently above the entrance to the cave, a dark figure stepping out from it to mow. Mickey's friend. His eyes widened in disbelief when he saw Mickey, who should have been dead by now, standing in the cave. The shock on Tomo's face was palpable, as if the very sight of Mickey's survival had shaken him to his core. Tomo, shocked, his voice echoing through the cave. "Mickey, you're still alive." Tomo's hands trembled as he threw a rope down towards Mickey. The rope dangled in the air, swaying slightly in the cold wind. It was a lifeline, but it was not enough. The rope only reached halfway, too short to offer any real chance of escape. Mickey reached for it, but the gap between them was too vast, the distance too great. Tomo, his brow furrowed in frustration, tried to climb down, but the icy walls of the cave made it impossible. He was too far from Mickey, too far from safety. As he descended cautiously, his eyes never left Mickey's form, which stood in the cold, looking like a man doomed to be swallowed by the earth itself. Timo, sighing, his voice tinged with resignation. "You'll be printed again tomorrow anyway, nothing to worry about." Timo's words were cold, but not cruel. They were merely a statement of fact. In their world, death was nothing more than a cycle repeated, inevitable, and unfeeling. For Mickey, dying was not the end. It was simply a pause before the next version of him was printed. Another body to continue the endless experiment. Another death to be forgotten. Timo hesitated, his eyes lingering on Mickey. The cave's chilling silence seemed to stretch on forever. Timo reached for his weapon, a heavy sigh escaping his lips. He knew what had to be done. Without another word, Timo began to climb back up the rope, leaving Mickey behind. He wasn't truly abandoning him. No, Timo knew that Mickey's death, like all the others, would be temporary. Tomorrow, the machine would bring him back. And so, as the vehicle hovered silently above, Timo ascended into the cold night, the rope swinging gently in the wind. The faint glow of the ship faded into the blackness, leaving Mickey alone once more in the void. In the stillness, Mickey could only hear the sound of his own breath, the sound of a man waiting for the inevitable. A high-tech laboratory, stark and sterile, illuminated by the cold, clinical glow of countless machines. The hum of technology fills the air, an eerie rhythm that echoes off the metallic walls. The atmosphere is sterile, as if life itself has been removed from the space, replaced by an endless cycle of death and rebirth. Mickey 17 lies motionless on a cold, metal bed, his body fully exposed to the relentless machinery. His form is scanned meticulously by a series of high-tech devices that whirl around him, their mechanical precision dissecting every inch of his body. Each device seems to hum with purpose, like the watchful eyes of unseen gods, recording his every detail, every flaw, every imperfection. In the dimly lit corner of the lab stands Dr. Dorothy, a woman whose expression is a mix of cold calculation and practiced detachment. She watches Mickey's body with the same impassive gaze she's worn countless times before, as if his death and resurrection are simply part of the day's work. Dr. Dorothy, speaking cautiously, her voice cold but not unkind. This version of Mickey won't last long. About 10 minutes at most. Her words are spoken like a scientific observation, devoid of emotion, as though Mickey's death is a mere stepping stone to the next experiment. The room is filled with the soft clicking and beeping of machinery, but for Mickey, time seems to stretch, each passing second dragging him further into the void of uncertainty. Mickey, his eyes blank, gazes down at his own hand. The skin is peeling, ravaged by the harsh environmental conditions of Niflheim. It's a grotesque sight. His hand is a collection of raw, exposed flesh, the skin twisted and broken by the cold. The life of the flesh is slowly being drained away, leaving only the remnants of what once was. He lifts his hand slowly, as if the weight of it is too much to bear. With trembling fingers, he pulls off his glove. As it slips away, part of his hand breaks free from his wrist, disintegrating into dust before falling towards the spaceship window. The sight of it, his own flesh, falling away like something unimportant, strikes Mickey with a jarring sense of detachment. The detached fingers tumble out of the window, vanishing into the void of space, as if they never existed in the first place. But the scientists in the lab? They are utterly unaware of the tragedy unfolding before them. They are too absorbed in their work, too focused on the process of resurrection, to notice Mickey's pain. His suffering is invisible, rendered meaningless in the face of their cold, mechanical pursuit of knowledge. Mickey's gaze drifts toward the monitors above him. They flash with data, numbers, and graphs, an endless stream of cold, impersonal information. To them, Mickey is just another experiment. Just another set of data to be logged and analyzed. Another life to be sacrificed in the name of progress. Dr. Dorothy, without turning to Mickey, typing on her console. Prepare for the rebirth process. His memories will be loaded in 5, 4, 3, 2. The final countdown feels surreal, as though Mickey is a passenger in his own life, no longer in control, no longer truly alive. His mind begins to cloud, the world around him starting to blur as his memories are uploaded into the machine, his consciousness tethered to the cold, artificial world they've built. In those last few moments, before the process is complete, Mickey wonders what it means to truly die. What is the cost of a life if it's never truly lived? How many times can you be printed before you cease to be human? Dr. Dorothy, with a hint of impatience. Uploading complete. Reprint begins in 3, 2, 1. The machines whirl to life, their cold, mechanical hum filling the air as they begin their work recreating Mickey, piece by piece, from the data they've collected. His body, once broken and worn, is rebuilt, reshaped, reprinted into a new, flawless version. But Mickey? He's left with nothing but the fragments of a life he'll never truly escape. The cold, impersonal lab. The sterile machines. And the endless cycle of death, rebirth, and oblivion. The dining hall of the spaceship is eerily quiet. The walls are smooth and metallic, the lighting harsh and unwelcoming. The sterile environment feels cold and impersonal, much like the lives of those who inhabit it. The air smells faintly of recycled oxygen and synthetic food. The long tables are filled with rows of disposables, each person sitting in solitude, lost in their own thoughts. Mickey, wearing the same drab uniform as the others, sits alone at the edge of the table. The food in front of him is carefully measured, precise to the last calorie. A grayish mush, it's tasteless and unappealing, designed purely for sustenance, not enjoyment. He stares at the bowl, his fork resting idle in his hand, as if the mere act of eating is a reminder of how small his existence is. The others around him eat quietly, their eyes glazed over, indifferent to the life they've been forced to live. There is no joy here, no camaraderie, only a quiet, shared resignation to their fate. Mickey's mind drifts as he watches the others, his thoughts darkening with every passing second. The hum of the spaceship's engines, the faint flicker of overhead lights, all serve as reminders that he is nothing more than a cog in the machine. Mickey, thinking, his thoughts heavy with despair. In his mind, am I really alive, or just a tool used once? Why do I have to endure this? What purpose do I serve, other than being a disposable piece in their endless cycle of experiments? His eyes fall on the others at the table, empty shells, hollow and lifeless. They all have the same vacant expression, the same dull resignation. None of them ever speak to each other. It's as if they have long given up on the idea of connection. They are all just waiting to die and be reprinted, their lives worth less than the scraps of food they are given. As Mickey stares down at his meal, a soft voice interrupts his thoughts. Nasha, sitting down next to him, her voice gentle but steady. You don't have to sit alone, you know. She's a female officer, one of the few people aboard the ship who doesn't treat him like an object. Nasha's presence is warm, human, something Mickey hasn't felt in what seems like forever. She doesn't look at him like a disposable. She sees him as someone. It's a feeling Mickey hasn't experienced in so long, it almost feels foreign. Mickey, barely looking up, his voice hollow. It's easier this way. I don't want to get close to anyone. People like us, we don't last. Nasha, looking at him with empathy. Maybe. But you're more than that. I can see it. There's a pause, a moment of silence as their eyes meet. Mickey feels something stir inside him, a flicker of hope, almost unrecognizable. They begin to talk. And for the first time in a long time, Mickey feels like he's not alone in the universe. Niflheim, the icy planet where death comes swiftly. The landscape is barren, covered in frozen terrain, jagged ice formations rising like silent sentinels. The atmosphere is thick with an alien cold, far harsher than anything Mickey has experienced before. The wind howls across the frozen wasteland, carrying the scent of something unfamiliar, something foreign. Mickey, now equipped with a protective suit, steps out onto the planet's surface. The crunch of his boots on the ice is the only sound breaking the silence. The sky above is a cold shade of gray, as if the world itself is holding its breath. He looks out into the vast expanse, but there is no beauty here, only the relentless cold and the oppressive silence. The scientists aboard the ship are watching closely from their control room, analyzing every detail, every breath Mickey takes as he steps into the unknown. Dr. Dorothy, speaking into her headset, her voice clinical. "We're looking for a cure for all these viruses, Mickey. You're the perfect subject for our research. Your body, your resilience, it's the perfect test bed." Mickey's body shudders as the wind stings his face, but he pushes forward, each step a painful reminder of how expendable he is. The air is thick with the potential for death, his death lurking in the frozen winds. He's been here before. Out on dangerous missions, testing the limits of his body and mind. But this time, it feels different. Something is wrong. He can feel it in his bones. The air is colder, the environment more hostile than ever before. He's not just fighting for survival. He's fighting to prove that he's more than just an experiment, more than just a disposable. As he walks further into the desolate landscape, he begins to feel the symptoms of the virus creeping into his system. His throat tightens, and a searing pain spreads through his chest. He stumbles, gasping for air, but it's too late. His body collapses into the snow, his vision fading as the coldness seeps into his very soul. Back in the lab, Dr. Dorothy watches as Mickey's vitals drop to zero on the screen. She doesn't flinch, doesn't hesitate. To her, this is just another data point in an endless series of experiments. Dr. Dorothy, calmly, without emotion. Another one down. Prepare for the reprint. We need to analyze the effects of the virus on his system before the next iteration. Mickey's body lies lifeless on the cold surface of Niflheim, his soul caught somewhere between the world of the living and the dead. But for the scientists, there is no pause, no grief. Only the cold, clinical drive to gather data. Only the endless cycle of life and death. And then, Mickey wakes again. His body, restored by the machines, reappears in the lab, whole but empty. His memories are loaded, and with them, the knowledge of the torment he's endured. He can feel it all, the deaths, the pain, the cold. But what haunts him most is the question that echoes in his mind with every rebirth. Mickey, thinking, voice weak and broken. In his mind. Why do I have to endure this? Is this really living, or just existing? The cycle continues, but for Mickey, each death brings him closer to a breaking point, and with it, a desperate need for an answer that he might never find. The sterile, cold laboratory, dimly lit with flickering lights. The hum of machines fills the air as a new figure appears, bathed in the faint glow of the room's overhead lights. It is Mickey 18. His face, his posture, and his movements mirror those of Mickey 17, but his eyes burn with something more: anger, resentment, a deep sense of injustice. His entire being radiates frustration. Mickey 18 steps forward, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the lab like a jagged knife. Mickey 18, laughing mockingly, his voice filled with bitter amusement. Is this what you call living? I had my own life. I had my own purpose, and now I'm stuck here, trapped in this cycle. I won't let you take my place. He advances towards Mickey 17, his fists clenched in rage. The tension in the room builds as the two versions of Mickey face off, standing mere feet apart, like mirror images of one another, yet the gulf between them could not be wider. Mickey 17's expression remains stoic, but inside, a storm is brewing. Mickey 18 lunges forward, his anger boiling over. The fight that ensues is chaotic, brutal, a clash of two men who were never meant to exist together. Fists fly, bodies collide with the cold, metal walls of the lab. Mickey 17 defends himself, but it's clear that Mickey 18's fury gives him an edge. Their struggle is a manifestation of everything they've been made to endure, fighting not only for survival but for their very identity. In the heat of the battle, Mickey 18 pauses, a strange clarity entering his eyes. He realizes that there can only be one of them, only one version of Mickey can truly exist, and the rest must be sacrificed to keep the cycle of life and death from continuing. Mickey 18, before he dies, his voice filled with finality and determination. There can only be one of us alive. And today, it's me. In a moment of desperation, Mickey 18 makes the ultimate choice. He reaches into the core of his being and detonates himself, his body exploding in a burst of light and force. The blast is deafening, shaking the very foundation of the lab, sending shockwaves through the room. As Mickey 17 stands frozen in shock, Mickey 18's sacrifice takes hold. The explosion isn't just physical, it is a rupture, a final declaration of defiance against the system that created them both. Mickey 17 stumbles back from the blast, his mind swirling with the weight of what just occurred. But even in the chaos, there's a flicker of understanding. Mickey 18's sacrifice was not just an end, but a statement. Life can no longer be reduced to a mere experiment. On the spaceship, amidst the cold, lifeless machinery, Mickey 17 stands alone, deep in thought. He looks out into the vast expanse of space, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what has transpired. His hands tremble, but it's not from fear. It's from the overwhelming realization that he is not just a tool in the hands of those who created him. He walks with purpose through the corridors of the ship, his mind made up. As he approaches Nasha, who is standing by the observation deck, he can feel the weight of his decision pressing down on him. He turns to her, his voice steady, though it trembles with the emotion he's long suppressed. Mickey 17, determined, his voice resolute. Even if I die again and again, I will no longer live as a tool. I will choose my own fate. Nasha looks at him, her eyes filled with empathy and concern. She has seen Mickey struggle, seen him endure the countless cycles of death and rebirth. But now, she sees something different, a spark of defiance, a glimmer of hope. With a deep breath, Nasha makes her decision as well. She steps forward, her resolve firm. Nasha, softly but with a fire in her voice. I'll stand by you, Mickey. We'll change everything. It's time we took control of our own lives. The decision has been made. Together, Mickey 17 and Nasha vow to lead the revolution, to abolish the disposable program and to finally take control of their fates, refusing to be mere tools in the hands of those who created them. Ending. Scene 7. A new future for Niflheim. Location, Niflheim, the cold and barren planet where the survivors now stand on the brink of a new dawn. The frozen landscape stretches out before them, but there is a sense of possibility in the air, an unspoken hope that, despite the harshness of their world, a new beginning is within reach. Nasha stands at the head of a gathering of people. The disposables who once lived as nothing more than tools, their lives discarded as easily as they were created, now stand as equals, no longer invisible or insignificant. Their faces are filled with a mix of fear and hope, but there's a palpable shift, a change that is not just physical but emotional. They are no longer resigned to their fate. They are ready to take back their lives. Nasha, speaking to the people, her voice strong and filled with conviction. We have lived in darkness for too long. Now, we will live for ourselves, not for cruel experiments. The future is ours. The crowd erupts in applause, their cheers reverberating across the cold plains of Niflheim. It is not just a celebration of their survival, but of their newfound autonomy. Together, they will rebuild their world not as tools to be discarded, but as free individuals who will shape their own destinies. Mickey 17 stands at the edge of the crowd, his heart swelling with pride. Despite all the deaths, all the sacrifices, he is finally free. He is no longer just a version of someone else. He is his own person, a symbol of change, and a beacon of hope for those who have come after him. Niflheim, the cold and barren planet where the survivors now stand on the brink of a new dawn. The frozen landscape stretches out before them, but there is a sense of possibility in the air, an unspoken hope that, despite the harshness of their world, a new beginning is within reach. Nasha stands at the head of a gathering of people. The disposables who once lived as nothing more than tools, their lives discarded as easily as they were created, now stand as equals, no longer invisible or insignificant. Their faces are filled with a mix of fear and hope, but there's a palpable shift, a change that is not just physical but emotional. They are no longer resigned to their fate. They are ready to take back their lives. Nasha, speaking to the people, her voice strong and filled with conviction. We have lived in darkness for too long. Now, we will live for ourselves, not for cruel experiments. The future is ours. The crowd erupts in applause, their cheers reverberating across the cold plains of Niflheim. It is not just a celebration of their survival, but of their newfound autonomy. Together, they will rebuild their world not as tools to be discarded, but as free individuals who will shape their own destinies. Mickey 17 stands at the edge of the crowd, his heart swelling with pride. Despite all the deaths, all the sacrifices, he is finally free. He is no longer just a version of someone else. He is his own person, a symbol of change, and a beacon of hope for those who have come after him. In the final moments, Mickey 17 realizes that, despite the endless deaths, despite the machine that tried to erase him, he remains the one who carries the memories of those who sacrificed everything for a chance at freedom. He becomes not just a survivor, but a symbol of everything they've fought for, a future where they are no longer invisible, no longer expendable. The story closes with Mickey looking out at the stars, a small but determined smile crossing his face, knowing that, at last, the future is theirs. As Mickey 17 looks out over the frozen plains of Niflheim, something profound settles within him. Despite all the pain, the endless deaths, the sacrifice, and the torment, he has finally reclaimed his humanity. No longer just a shadow of the past, no longer a tool for experiments, Mickey stands as a symbol of defiance against a system that once saw him as disposable. With Nasha by his side, and the people of Niflheim rising to take control of their own destiny, the revolution is no longer just a dream, it's a living, breathing reality. The cold, oppressive landscape that once represented death now glows with the warmth of newfound hope. But as the story ends, one question lingers in the air: what happens when you break free from a system that controls everything? Mickey's journey is far from over. The battle against an unyielding system may have ended, but what comes next? How will they rebuild a society from the ashes of oppression? And what sacrifices will still be demanded to ensure that freedom truly lasts? The path ahead is uncertain, filled with danger, and yet, the potential for something greater than they've ever known. Will Mickey and Nasha be able to navigate the complexities of their new world? And will the people of Niflheim truly live for themselves, or will the shadows of their past come back to haunt them? The story may have reached its climax, but the questions remain unanswered, and the future is waiting to be shaped. So, what do you think will happen next? Can the people of Niflheim truly break free from their past? How will Mickey's legacy shape the future? Drop your thoughts and theories in the comments below, because this revolution is far from over. The journey is just beginning.